in limine regarding use of certain inflammatory words. I asked counsel if they could meet and see if there was any agreement. If there wasn't, I would rather have that after we do the jury selection before opening.
Then I would ask at least that we be admonished not to use such words in jury selection.
That should be agreed upon.
I don't have any objection to not mentioning those specific words in jury selection.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other motions that are out there pending that the court has not brought up this morning?
I had asked you to revisit the sanctions motion because I had mentioned to you that I had some alternatives to simply not handling that matter until after the trial. So I'll state it, and the state would probably need an opportunity to respond. It may not be appropriate for right now, but I think it needs to be addressed before jury selection. So if I might.
Briefly.
Sure. Our motion for sanctions is based upon the failure to give information, and you haven't fully ruled on that. But to the extent that we have, in fact, been prejudiced or delayed in the preparation of that evidence based upon the late notice or failure to give by the state, I'm asking that the court consider relaxing authentication rules or other evidentiary rules that had we gotten the information when we were supposed to be given it in February or shortly thereafter, we would have had the information, had the opportunity to build up the evidence and discovery necessary for authentication purposes. So though it may be on a one event at a time process, we don't know yet, but if in fact some of that evidence does become relevant and it's otherwise admissible, and then we do not have the proper authentication that I can prove to you we otherwise would have had with efforts made.
We'll take that up on a instance-by-instance basis. Sure. Okay. And just so everybody knows the process and the procedure that we're going to be doing to start the jury selection, first of all, if counsel will make their appearances for the record.
Bernie Delveon on behalf of the state of Florida.
John Guy on behalf of the state of Florida.
Rich Mancutt, on behalf of the people of the state of Florida.
Mark Romero on behalf of George Zimmerman.
Your Honor, Don West on behalf of George Zimmerman. Also seated at the council table is Mr. Robert Hirschhorn.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. And I have Mr. Zimmerman in the back.
On behalf of Mr. Zimmerman.
Do you want to make your appearances? You're sitting at the table.
They are unfortunately not quite lawyers yet, Your Honor. So while they're here with the court's allowance, they're not members of the bar.
Okay, thank you very much. The procedure that we're doing is Judge McIntosh is downstairs qualifying the entire venire. There are other cases that are set for trial this morning. As soon as she has finished, the attorneys and I will be going down there. We're separating out 100 prospective jurors. We're going to go down there and I will give them a juror questionnaire that they will complete. Once that questionnaire is completed, the clerk's office will gather them and will make copies for counsel in the court. We will review those and send jurors up one at a time for individual voir dire. Once we have 21 of those people, we will start our regular jury selection process. So, Sarah, do we know if Judge McIntosh has finished? Do you waive Mr. Zimmerman's appearance of going downstairs to present the jury questionnaire?
I think I'd rather have him present, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay.
About 20 more minutes.
20 more minutes? Okay. Is there anything that we could take up in the period of time that we're waiting for the venire to be qualified?
I would just request, I know that we modified, or the court modified the questionnaire. If we could have the final version, I think both sides. I know we met and the court was going to modify it.
I don't have copies. If you want to come up here and share and look at this one.
And one other thing we had is, I know the state has tendered to defense counsel potential witnesses, and I think it's 240 something. We were waiting to hear back from the defense as to whether we could cut down some of those people or not, and I think we're waiting still from the defense.
We have cut down significantly. I was going to suggest that Mr. Guy and I get together, since we've sort of taken the lead when the questionnaires come up, and I'll go over with you. It's quite severely limited, and I think with some concepts I want to talk to you about.
Well, I was going to, you'll have time to do that because I was going to give that list to the 21 who would be seated for the regular voir dire. If you wanted to come up and...
Yes. And, a chance we can actually accomplish a copy of it while we have a few minutes?
Well, I'll have you look at it and then we can get you a copy of it.
Thank you. Oh, I apologize. Agreed to, Your Honor, and we appreciate the court allowing us to review it before it's tendered to the jury.
Okay, thank you. And while that you're up here, I wanted to put on the record, we had discussed the procedures for jury selection. Are there any objections to the procedures? Mainly, the defense have requested that we go down and speak to the potential 100 jurors about the questionnaire and introduce everybody. Is that correct?
It is, Your Honor.
And there was no objection
We have
from
no
the
objection,
state?
Your Honor.
So the procedures that the court has stated have been accepted and by both sides, is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
We, of course, as you recall, had outlined an objection to not using the full questionnaire that we had suggested. You had ruled on that. I just want to renew that for whatever purposes necessary.
Okay. Based upon my ruling and my preparation of the questionnaire, there are no other objections to the procedure?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. We'll make a copy. Juncture, what I'm prepared to do is, while we're waiting for the jury qualification to be completed, is to go back into chambers. I'll have copies of the confidential juror questionnaire for counsel, not to be distributed, and as soon as we know that we're ready, counsel and Mr. Zimmerman will come back and we will go downstairs. Court is in recess at this time.